The microphone trembled slightly in Maria's hand, but she lifted her chin, forcing a smile as cameras flashed around her. Staff clapped politely while banners stretched across the compound of Elixir Holdings, a prestigious company in Abuja. A bright red carpet rolled across the marble tiles. Photographers leaned in, catching every angle as the MC announced loudly. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to welcome our new manager, a woman of resilience and vision, Maria Okafor." Polite applause filled the air, though some clapped with hesitation. Maria stood tall, slim and graceful in her navy blue suit. Her dark skin glowed under the Abuja sun, her braided hair pulled neatly into a bun, and the faint shimmer of pearls around her neck gave her an air of elegance. To the outside world, she looked composed, confident, and ready. But inside, her heart pounded like a drum. This was her day of triumph. For years she had lived in the shadows, mocked by neighbors, pitted by relatives, abandoned by the man who had once promised her forever. Gabriel Adesina, her ex-husband, had walked out on her, calling her too small for his ambitions. Those words had haunted her, driven her, and now pushed her to this very stage. Maria had worked her way up, sacrificed sleep, swallowed humiliation, and clawed for every opportunity. Today was her chance to shine. And deep in her heart, she wanted Gabriel to see her rise. That was why she sent him the golden invitation card, to come and watch her stand tall, not as his ex-wife, but as the celebrated new manager of one of Nigeria's biggest firms. The staff lined the carpet, their eyes trailing after her as she walked. Some whispered, "She's really the new manager? She looks strong, but can she handle this place?" Well, the board must have seen something in her. Maria ignored the murmurs, forcing her smile wider as she stepped onto the podium. The cameras clicked furiously. Her name echoed through the compound. For a fleeting second, she felt victorious. She had made it. Then the atmosphere shifted. The clapping slowed. Heads turned toward the massive gates of the compound. Security stiffened, their walkie-talkies buzzing. The loud chatter of the crowd fell into a hush. Through the gates glided a black Rolls-Royce Phantom, its polished body reflecting the blinding sun. Behind it, a convoy of sleek SUVs rolled in with quiet authority. Maria's pulse quickened. She hadn't been told of another VIP arrival. The car doors opened. Out stepped a tall man in a tailored gray suit that hugged his broad shoulders perfectly. His skin glistened dark against the morning light, his beard trimmed neatly, his shoes shining like mirrors. A luxury watch glittered on his wrist as his piercing eyes scanned the compound with quiet authority. Maria froze. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him, Gabriel, her ex-husband, the man she had hoped to humiliate today by flaunting her success. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The MC's hand shook as he grabbed the microphone, his voice cracking before he steadied himself. "Ladies and gentlemen," he stammered, then lifted his voice to a thunderous boom. "Please rise for the Chief Executive Officer of Elixir Holdings, Mr. Gabriel Adesina." The crowd erupted into cheers. Staff stood to their feet, clapping louder than before. Photographers rushed forward, cameras flashing like lightning. Maria's knees weakened. Her proud smile crumbled. Gabriel wasn't here as a guest. He wasn't here to applaud her. He was her boss. And as his eyes met hers across the compound, Maria realized the humiliation she had planned for him had just twisted into the trap that would swallow her whole. Maria's palms grew clammy as the applause thundered around her. The name, Gabriel Adesina, echoed in her ears like a cruel joke. She forced herself to keep standing, to keep smiling, though her heart felt like it was about to collapse. The crowd parted as Gabriel strode forward. His commanding presence was undeniable. The tall billionaire moved with confidence, his gray suit tailored to perfection, his dark skin gleaming with health, and his sharp jawline framed by a neatly trimmed beard. The Rolex on his wrist glinted under the camera flashes, each step he took reminding Maria that he was no longer the struggling young man she had once known. He had risen higher than she ever imagined. Board members rushed to greet him, bowing slightly, their voices filled with admiration. "Welcome, sir. Good to have you back, Chief Executive. We are honored." Gabriel acknowledged them with a nod, his deep voice carrying authority as he said, "Thank you. Let's proceed. Time is money." His eyes, however, never left Maria. As the MC scrambled to cover the awkwardness, Gabriel ascended the podium and stood beside her. The staff, cameras, and guests all watched closely. Maria felt every stare burn into her skin. "Ladies and gentlemen," Gabriel began smoothly, his baritone voice commanding silence, "today is not only about welcoming a new manager but also about reminding us what Elixir Holdings stands for: resilience, vision, and integrity." Applause followed. Gabriel gestured toward Maria. "And here, we have Mrs. Maria Okafor. Some of you already know her. She's joining us in a leadership position. I trust she will do her best." The way he said it, calm, steady, yet laced with something deeper, made Maria's stomach twist. It wasn't praise. It was a subtle challenge. After the ceremony, Maria was escorted inside the glass doors of the towering skyscraper that housed Elixir Holdings headquarters. The lobby sparkled with polished marble floors, golden chandeliers, and massive portraits of past chairmen. Employees in sharp suits hurried back and forth, whispering as their eyes lingered on her. "She's the new manager? She looks elegant, but I heard she's his ex-wife. God forbid. That's going to be drama." Maria pretended not to hear. She adjusted her navy blue blazer and walked with measured steps, determined not to crumble. But her resolve was tested the moment she entered the boardroom. The room was vast, lined with glass walls that overlooked Abuja's skyline. A long mahogany table stretched across the center, with leather chairs neatly arranged. At the far end sat Gabriel, already reviewing documents. His presence filled the space. His gaze lifted slowly as she walked in, his eyes sharp, assessing her like an opponent on a battlefield. Maria bowed her head slightly. "Good afternoon, sir." His lips curved into a faint smirk. "Maria, or should I say, Manager Okafor?" The sting in his tone was clear. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his legs, his hands folded neatly. "You've come a long way since the last time I saw you." Maria swallowed hard. "Yes. Life teaches us many lessons. And some of us," he replied coldly, "learn those lessons too late." The silence in the boardroom was heavy. Maria clenched her fists by her side, determined not to let him see her break. She remembered every night she had cried after their divorce, every insult he had thrown at her, every struggle she had faced alone. And now, standing before him, she knew one thing: Gabriel would not defeat her again. A knock at the door interrupted the tension. The head of human resources entered with a stack of files, bowing quickly. "Sir, madam, the contracts are ready for signing." Gabriel gestured for Maria to sit across from him. As she lowered herself into the leather chair, she could feel his eyes boring into her. The signing began, papers shuffled, pens scratched against pages. Yet, under the surface, another contract was being written, one of silent rivalry, unspoken revenge, and dangerous power games. And Maria knew this was only the beginning. The first week at Elixir Holdings felt like walking through fire for Maria. Every corridor she walked through, whispers followed her. Every staff member she passed seemed to measure her, some with curiosity, others with open disdain. She knew why, not because she was new, but because she was Gabriel's ex-wife, and now she sat at a table where power was currency. Her office, though spacious and elegantly furnished with polished oak furniture, felt like a glass cage. The window overlooked the bustling Abuja skyline, but she barely saw it. Her days were filled with reports, endless strategy documents, and constant reminders that Gabriel controlled the air she breathed inside the company. One morning, Maria walked into the boardroom for her first major presentation. The mahogany table stretched endlessly, with senior executives seated in neat rows. Men in sharp suits, women in designer gowns and gelly head ties, their faces set in expressions of authority. At the far end, Gabriel sat like a king on his throne, his fingers tapping lightly against the polished wood. His eyes were cold, unreadable. Maria adjusted her blazer and clicked the projector. The screen lit up behind her. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady though her palms sweated, Today I will be sharing a new proposal for restructuring the northern market branches. Charts and figures filled the screen. She spoke confidently, her knowledge undeniable. Some executives nodded in approval, impressed by her clarity. For a moment she felt in control. But Gabriel's voice cut through the air like a blade. This proposal, who reviewed it? Maria paused. I did, personally. He leaned back, smirking slightly. Interesting. Because I see gaps here. Serious gaps. Gasps fluttered across the room. One executive shifted uncomfortably, another scribbled notes. Maria felt her heart pound. With respect, sir, she said firmly, the figures were double-checked. The gaps you're referring to are projections based on market trends. Gabriel tilted his head, his dark eyes narrowing. So you're telling me you're right, and I'm wrong? The room fell silent. All eyes darted between them. Maria straightened her back, her voice unwavering. I'm saying the data speaks for itself. The markets are changing. If we don't adapt, we lose. A tense silence lingered. Then, unexpectedly, one of the older board members, Madame Beatrice, adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses and said, She's right. I've seen similar numbers from independent reports. Others murmured in agreement. The tide began to shift. Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. Very well. Let's proceed with her plan. But remember, Mrs. Okafor, he emphasized her old name, stabbing her pride. If this fails, the responsibility falls on you alone. Maria nodded. I accept that. The meeting ended, but the battle lines were drawn. Maria walked back to her office, her heels clicking against the marble floors, her chest burning with both anger and determination. She had survived the first attack, but she knew Gabriel wouldn't stop. That evening, as the sun dipped over Abuja, Maria sat at her desk long after others had left. Papers lay scattered, her laptop glowed with financial models, and her phone buzzed with unread messages. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Memories of Gabriel came rushing back. The days when he had nothing, when they had struggled together. She remembered feeding him with her small salary when he was jobless, praying for him, believing in his dreams. And now, here he was, powerful and merciless, using the company as a weapon against her. Tears pricked her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She couldn't afford weakness. Not here. Not now. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on her office door. It was Esther, a young junior staff member with kind eyes and simple braids, clutching a stack of files. Madam, she said nervously, I just wanted to say, you did well today. Some of us see it. We're rooting for you. Maria's lips curved into a faint smile. Thank you, Esther. That means more than you know. As the girl left, Maria whispered to herself, this war is just beginning. And I will not lose. The next week arrived like a storm cloud over Elixir Holdings. Whispers of tension between Maria and Gabriel had spread like wildfire through the company corridors. The janitors, the secretaries, the mid-level managers, everyone had heard what had happened in the boardroom. To some, Maria was brave. To others, she was reckless. But to Gabriel, it was unforgivable. Behind the polished glass doors of his executive office, Gabriel sat in his leather chair, swirling a glass of cognac in his hand. His assistant, Chaik, a tall young man with a neatly trimmed beard, stood nervously by the desk. You called for me, sir? Gabriel's eyes gleamed with cold calculation. Chaik, I want every single move Maria makes monitored. Every file she signs, every decision she takes, every staff member she speaks to. If she slips, even once, I want to know. Yes, sir, Chaik said, lowering his eyes. Good, Gabriel replied, sipping from his glass. And make sure the press gets wind of the northern market deal. If it collapses, it won't be Elixir's name they drag. It will be hers. Meanwhile, Maria worked late into the night in her office. Her modest yet sharp outfit, a navy blazer over a cream blouse, was slightly wrinkled from the long hours. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit remained firm. Stacks of files surrounded her, glowing under the desk lamp. Esther, the junior staff member who had shown kindness before, knocked gently and walked in holding a tray of tea. Madam, you need to rest. she said softly. You've been here since morning. Maria smiled faintly. Rest is a luxury I can't afford right now, Esther. Not when I know Gabriel is plotting. Esther's brows furrowed. Why does he hate you so much? You helped build this empire, didn't you? Maria's heart tightened. Memories flashed before her eyes. Nights of hunger, days of sacrifice, prayers whispered in small apartments while Gabriel dreamed aloud of becoming a great man. She had stood by him when no one else did. But power had changed him. He hates me, Maria whispered, because I remind him of who he used to be. And he can't stand it. The following day, Maria arrived at the office to find chaos. Newspapers lined the reception desk with bold headlines. Elixir Holdings faces major crisis in Northern Market. New executive Maria Okafor responsible for risky moves. Gasps filled the air as staff glanced at her, their eyes full of judgment. Some whispered, others shook their heads. Maria held her head high and walked to her office, though her chest burned. Inside the boardroom, Gabriel sat at the head of the table with a smirk playing on his lips. The other executives eyed Maria coldly. Madame Beatrice adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. Maria, is it true? Did your projections cause this? Maria steadied herself, opening her folder. No, it's not true. The data was manipulated before it reached the media. Look closely, these numbers were altered. She slid documents across the table, pointing out the discrepancies. For a moment, silence filled the room as some executives examined the pages. But Gabriel leaned forward, his voice dripping with venom. Or maybe you're just covering your tracks, Maria. Maybe this company made a mistake bringing you here. The words cut deep. Maria clenched her fists beneath the table but refused to show weakness. If you believe that, Gabriel, then allow an independent auditor to investigate. If I'm guilty, I'll resign immediately. The board murmured among themselves. Madame Beatrice raised her hand. That is fair. Let the auditors decide. Gabriel forced a smile, but his eyes blazed with fury. His plan had been to bury Maria quickly, but she had turned the tables. After the meeting, Maria walked down the marble hallway, her heels clicking sharply. She stopped by a window, taking a deep breath as the Abuja sun streamed through. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman bruised by betrayal but not broken. In the distance, Esther approached. You stood your ground again, madam. But be careful. A wounded lion is the most dangerous. Maria nodded slowly. Then let him roar. I won't back down. Not this time, not ever. And as the day faded, the silent war inside Elixir Holdings only grew sharper. Gabriel had power, but Maria had truth, and both were about to collide in ways that would shake the company to its core. The atmosphere inside Elixir Holdings was heavy, almost suffocating. A storm brewed behind the tinted glass walls, and everyone could feel it. Staff whispered in corners, files were passed around with trembling hands, and the looming audit had put everyone on edge. Maria walked through the halls, her simple cream dress and navy blazer making her stand out less than Gabriel's polished designer suits, yet her presence carried more weight than ever. She moved with calm determination, though inside her heart beat like a drum. Esther caught up with her, holding a bundle of files. Madam, the auditors are here. They want to see you first. Maria nodded, clutching the files in her hands. She knew this was her moment, either the end of her career or the vindication she desperately needed. Inside the boardroom, the auditors sat at the long wooden table, their laptops open, faces expressionless. Gabriel lounged at the far end, legs crossed, pretending to look bored. His gold wristwatch glistened under the chandeliers, but his eyes darted with hidden anticipation. Maria placed the documents on the table. I have nothing to hide. Please, review everything. The auditors began their work, scrolling through records, comparing data, cross-checking signatures. Minutes turned to hours as tension mounted. Executives leaned forward, beads of sweat forming on some foreheads. Madame Beatrice watched silently, her eyes flicking between Gabriel and Maria. Finally, one of the auditors cleared his throat. He held up two documents side by side. There are clear inconsistencies here. Figures were altered before they were published. And based on timestamps, these changes were made from the executive director's office. Gasps erupted in the room. Heads turned immediately toward Gabriel. His smirk faltered, and for the first time, unease showed on his face. Maria spoke, her voice steady. I told you. This crisis wasn't an accident. It was engineered. Gabriel wanted me destroyed, and he was willing to sink the company's reputation to do it. Gabriel slammed his fist on the table, his voice booming. Lies. She forged this. She's manipulating all of you. But Madame Beatrice stood, her voice firm. Enough, Gabriel. You've been circling this company like a vulture for too long. I see it now. Maria may have been your wife once, but she is the one standing for truth today. The room erupted into murmurs. Some executives nodded in agreement, others shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to pick a side too quickly. Maria felt her chest tighten, but she held her ground. I didn't come back here for revenge. I came to protect the company we built together. The company that employs thousands of families across this nation. You may hate me, Gabriel, but I will not let your greed destroy what so many depend on. Silence followed her words, heavy and undeniable. Gabriel's face twisted with rage. He rose suddenly, pointing a trembling finger at her. You think you've won? You've humiliated me for the last time. This isn't over. With that, he stormed out of the boardroom, the heavy door slamming behind him. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. Some shook their heads, others whispered about his downfall. Madame Beatrice placed a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. You've proven your integrity, child. But stay vigilant. Men like Gabriel do not fall quietly. Maria exhaled deeply, her body trembling with relief and exhaustion. She had faced the fire and come out alive, but she knew the final test was still ahead. As she walked out of the boardroom, staff turned to watch. Some clapped quietly. Others bowed their heads in respect. For the first time since stepping into Elixir Holdings, Maria felt a shift in the air. No longer the doubted outsider, she was now the symbol of resilience and truth. Yet in the shadows of the parking lot, Gabriel lit a cigarette, his eyes burning with fury. He whispered to himself, if I can't have this empire, then no one will. The war between past love and present betrayal was reaching its breaking point. And only one final act would decide the future of Elixir Holdings. The next morning, Elixir Holdings buzzed with tension. Newspapers carried headlines of the company's scandal, but Maria's name was already being whispered as the woman who saved it from collapse. Maria arrived early, her hair neatly tied back, her cream blouse tucked into a navy skirt. Despite the storm brewing around her, she looked calm, ready. She knew Gabriel would not give up so easily. By noon, her fears came true. A commotion erupted at the company's entrance. Gabriel stormed in with two men carrying thick folders, his suit wrinkled, his face twisted in desperation. I have evidence, he shouted, waving the documents. Maria is the real fraud here. She stole from me. She destroyed my career. Gasps rippled through the lobby as staff gathered. But Maria stood her ground, her voice firm. Then let the truth decide, Gabriel. Present it before the board. Inside the boardroom, the executives gathered once more. The air was sharp, thick with suspense. Gabriel slammed the papers down. But as the auditors flipped through them, their brows furrowed. This is fabricated, one of them said. These signatures don't match. The timestamps have been altered. This is fake. A collective murmur filled the room. Gabriel's face turned pale. Madame Beatrice rose slowly from her seat. Gabriel Agu, she said firmly, you are finished here. Your deceit ends today. Security, escort him out. Two guards stepped forward. Gabriel struggled, shouting curses at Maria, but his voice grew weaker as he was dragged from the room. His downfall was complete. The executives turned to Maria, their expressions softening. Applause began quietly, then grew louder until the hall echoed with claps. Madame Beatrice stepped forward and embraced Maria. You've saved this company, she whispered. Not just with numbers, but with courage. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I only did what was right. Truth always finds a way. For the first time in years, she felt free. Not as someone's ex-wife, not as a victim of betrayal, but as a woman who had stood in the fire and proven her strength. Later that evening, staff celebrated quietly in the lobby. The crisis was over. Maria walked outside into the cool Abuja night, the city lights glowing against the sky. Esther joined her, smiling warmly. "You've shown us all," she said, "that even when life knocks you down, if you hold on to truth, you will rise again." Maria gazed at the stars above, whispering to herself, "This was never just about me. It was about showing that honesty and courage can change everything." This tale teaches us that truth will always outshine lies, that loyalty and integrity matter more than wealth, and that no matter how dark betrayal feels, justice always finds its way home. If you enjoyed this powerful story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional African stories full of drama, suspense, and life-changing lessons.